Hi guys, so I'm going to be reading Ban This Book by Ellen Gratz. It's all about censorship in books and what books should be allowed for students to read. So we're going to look at Amy Ann Ollinger's tale of how she went to go check out her favorite book and how it wasn't there, and how she solves the problem of books being banned and kind of gets into a little bit of trouble. So we're going to read about it and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So, chapter one is called The Mystery of the Missing Book. It all started the day my favorite book went missing from the library. I didn't know it was missing. Well, not yet. In my mind, it was still sitting there all alone on the shelf, like a kid in the cafeteria waiting for one of her one and only friend to come and find her, waiting for me to find her. All I wanted to do was run to the library and check out my favorite book. Before homeroom, but Rebecca, my one and only real life friend, was still talking about trademarking our names. Have you ever thought about registering amyannollinger.com? Rebecca asked me. No, Rebecca. I have never thought about registering amyannollinger.com. I am 9 years old. Why in the world would I bother to register a website with my name on it when my parents won't even let me use Facebook? That's what I thought about saying. But what I said instead was, no. You should, Rebecca told me. You've got a unique name. But even so, somebody could register it, and then what would you do? RebeccaZimmerman.com is already gone. I'm 10 years old, and already my future intellectual property is being snapped up. Jay-Z and Beyonce trademarked their baby's name less than a month after she was born. You'd think my parents would have known enough to do the same. Rebecca's parents were both lawyers, and she wanted to be one too when she grew up. I couldn't imagine a more boring job. Instead, I said, yeah. I was still itching to get to the library and check out my favorite book. I opened my locker to stuff my backpack inside and gave my mailbox a quick look. Nobody knows how it got started, but everybody in Shelburne Elementary has these cardboard boxes taped to the inside door of their lockers, just below the little vents they put on there. In case you get stuffed in your locker by a bully, if you want to leave a note for somebody, you just slip the piece of paper in the slot and it falls right into the little cardboard box. It's such a tradition that Mr. Crutchfield, the custodian, just leaves the boxes in the lockers from year to year. As usual, my mailbox was empty, which I'd expected. My one and only friend doesn't believe in writing notes. Never leave a paper trail, Rebecca says. More advice from her lawyer parents. Did you hear about Morgan Freeman, the actor? Rebecca asked. Somebody who wasn't named Morgan Freeman registered his name at morganfreeman.com, and he had to sue them to get it back. Now, that's an interesting case. I can't imagine anything less interesting, Rebecca. I don't care about anything about trademarks or registering domain names. I have to go check out my favorite book before somebody else does. That was what I wanted to tell her. Instead, I held up a handful of books like a shield and said, I have to return these books to the library before class, and backed away before she could tell me more about the court case. I'll see you in homeroom, I called. Normally, I would already have my favorite book checked out and in my backpack, but our librarian, Mrs. Jones, has a rule that you can only renew a book 2 times in a row, and then it has to sit on the shelf for 5 whole school days before you can check it out again. She says it's to make sure that other people get a chance to read it, but I think she made that rule up just to make me read other books, which I would have done anyways. I dumped last night's book in the book return and waved good morning to Mrs. Jones on the way to the fiction shelves. Amy Ann, Mrs. Jones calls. Honey, wait. Just let me grab my book, I called back. I turned into the HN shelf and hurried to where I knew my favorite book would be waiting for me. Only it wasn't there. I looked again. It still wasn't there. I looked behind the books. In the case, it had gotten pushed back and was hidden behind the others like they sometimes do, but no, it really wasn't there. But my favorite book was always on the shelf. Could somebody else have checked it out? I was just about to go and ask Mrs. Jones when she turned down the row. Mrs. Jones and her big white lady with short brown hair and rhinestone granny glasses that hung around her neck on a chain when she isn't reading. Today, she was wearing a red dress with white polka dots. Polka dots are her thing. "Where's my book?" I asked her. "That's what I was trying to tell you, honey," Mrs. Jones said. "I knew you'd come for it first thing." "It's been 5 days," I told her. "I marked it down on my calendar. I get to check it out again after 5 days." "You said so. Did somebody else check it out?" "No, Amy Ann. I had to take it off the shelf." I frowned. Take it off the shelf? What did she mean, take it off the shelf? Why? Mrs. Jones sighed and wrung her hands. She looked like she was about to tell me my dog had died. "Because some parents got together and said they didn't think it was appropriate for elementary school, and the school board agreed with them." "Wasn't appropriate? What does that mean?" "It means I can't check it out to you, honey, or anybody else, not until I talk to the school board and get this nonsense overturned." "It means, Amy Ann, that your favorite book, was banned from the school library." Did I just say that? I felt like the carpet under my feet was turning into quicksand, and I was sinking fast. I grabbed hold of the bookshelf so I wouldn't fall over. "But it isn't inappropriate. It's very appropriate. It's a great book. It's my favorite book." "I know, honey. I agree. Nobody but your parents has the right to tell you what books you can and can't read. I promise you, I'm going to fight this. But in the meantime, I have to abide by what the school board decides, or I could lose my job." All I could do was nod. I felt like crying, which was stupid. It was like somebody had come into my bedroom and taken my stuff without asking, which was even more stupid because it was a library book. Library books belong to everybody. "You can help get it back, Amy Ann," Mrs. Jones said. I wiped a tear from my cheek. "How?" "There's going to be a school board meeting Thursday night, and I'm going to be there to tell them all how wrong they are. It'd be even better if they heard it from you." My eyes went wide. "Me?" "Just to hear why you like that book so much would mean a lot." I swallowed hard. "You are crazy, Mrs. Jones. Me get up in front of a bunch of adults and tell them why that book is my favorite book? Do you have polka dots on your brain? I can't do that." That's what I wanted to say. Instead, what I said was, "Okay." My favorite book and why. The late bus dropped me off in the neighborhood, and I stood by the curb looking down the street at my yellow house. Inside the house right now were Thing 1 and Thing 2, my annoying little sisters. I closed my eyes and shuddered at the thought of having to spend one more minute with them. You haven't met them yet, but trust me, if there was a prize for worst siblings of the century, Alexis and Angelina would rank above Fudge Hatcher, Stinky Moody, and Edmund Pensivey. And Edmund Penvency basically sold his brothers and sisters right out to the White Witch for a plate of desserts. Right then and there, I thought about running away from home, just like the main character in my favorite book. Did I tell you what my favorite book is? The one that got banned from Shelburne Elementary Library? The one that I said I would go to a school board meeting and talk about out loud in front of other people? It's from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankwiller by E.L. Kongsberg. I like a lot of other books too, especially Island of the Blue Dolphins, Hatchet, My Side of the Mountain, Hattie Big Sky, The Sign of the Beaver, and Julie of the Wolves. Basically any story where the main character gets to live alone. Indian Captive is pretty great too, even though Mary Jemison has to live in an Indian village. But I'd rather live with the Indian kidnappers than live with my two stupid younger sisters. I turned away from my house and looked down the road that led out of my subdivision towards the 4-lane Papa Taco, our favorite Mexican restaurant. It was just 15 minutes away by car. I could run away to there. How long would it take me to walk it? I shook my head. Even if I made it, what was I going to do? From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweller, Claudia and her little brother Jamie run away to Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City and hide out every night in the bathroom so the security guards don't find them. I could hide out in Papa Taco bathrooms until they locked up for the night, but then I'd just be stuck in a Mexican restaurant all night. Now, if I could somehow get to the library. My dreams of running away died as Mom's car turned into the subdivision and came my way. I waited until she stopped alongside me and rolled down her window. Hey, stranger, thinking about running away? Of course I was thinking about running away. Every day I stand here and think about how I could fill my backpack with enough changes of clothes and all the money I have, which isn't much because you don't give me enough allowance, and ride the late bus until it dropped me off somewhere close to the mall where I could sleep every night on the beds in the department store. That's what I wanted to say, but of course I didn't. Instead, I said no. Mom was lighter skinned than me, with frizzy hair and big dimples on her cheeks. Then she smiled like she was now. Hop in, she said. How was school? She asked as we cruised the 30 seconds to our driveway. I wanted to say, it was awful. My favorite book got banned, and Mrs. Jones asked me to come in front of the school board meeting and talk about it. And I said yes, and I don't even know how to do that. But instead, I just said, fine. Don't put your braids in your mouth, Mom told me for the millionth time. My whole head is covered in braids, some of them with little beads at the bottom. I suck on them when I get nervous, which is a lot. Mom pulled in beside Dad's truck. I got out and stood by the car, reluctant to go inside. Oh, come on, Mom said. It's not that bad. Oh, yes, it is, I wanted to say. But, of course, I didn't.